We are also recording, so for those of you who could not be with us live, you'll get this sooner than later, and for those who want to re-listen to it, obviously you'll all get a copy of this. We had more than 40 people register for this class, so thank you so much. This was a little bit of an impromptu inspiration, and it was really fun to send this out to both Kristin and my community. We have different communities and we have combined community, so it was really cool to see who opted in for this tonight. Some of you are here to learn about Dharma for the first time. Maybe you've just come into this term or language and you're just beginning to understand what this means for you. And for some of you, you're here to dial up your understanding. Maybe this is not your first rodeo, but you're ready for a deeper or more clear understanding. And some of you are here to decide if Dharma School Retreat is the next right step for you. We know we have several of you joining us either live tonight or in the recording who are highly interested in this experience. So we hope this gives you some insight into what more is there to learn about Dharma. All right, Kristin, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to begin, as always, with a brief meditation, just so that we can all come into the space and reset and fully receive what we have to offer tonight. So I invite you to just set down anything that you may have in your hands, cup of tea, pencil, pen. If you've got your puppy dog in your hands, just let that baby stay there. And as you feel comfortable, just go ahead and drift the eyes closed. Or if you prefer, you can just cast your gaze downward toward the surface in front of you and soften the focus of your eyes. And just begin by noticing all your contact points with the seat that supports and surrounds you. Just noticing the weight of your body seated in this position. Notice the placement of your feet and your hands. And notice the placement of the skull atop the spine. So just acknowledging how the body supports itself and is likewise supported by the physical environment and the earth. And notice the movement of the breath through your body, gently flowing, and just noticing without needing to change a thing. This breath that naturally breathes you day in and day out. This breath that has been breathing you since your first breath and will remain until your last, without any conscious choice or decision whatsoever. Following that breath, flowing in and flowing out. Gently drawing your awareness, your attention to the very core of your chest, the seat of your heart. And just begin by noticing whatever's present at the heart. Any physical sensation or emotional state, perhaps even a thought form. Just noticing what you notice in the space of the heart, space of the chest. Just allowing yourself to be with what is. And on your next exhale, just create a little space to drop an intention for our shared time together this evening. The intention to simply be present. to be open-minded, open-hearted as you receive what's offered, picking up what resonates with you and just leaving the rest. And you can silently declare this intention to yourself here at the heart by saying, I am present. I am present. I am present. And on your next exhale, just let that fade with the breath. Let it go. Notice once again your physical body seated in the seat that supports and surrounds you. And just as if you could look upon yourself from above, notice yourself seated here in this moment and in this space. And smile because you are here. We have so much to be grateful for that has led us to this moment, to this container, to be together and to have this conversation. And so as you feel ready, just begin to drift the eyes back open, feeling reset, feeling present, and feeling ready to receive, ready to begin. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for following along. I hope that was helpful in setting things up for this evening's content and information, and ultimately our invitation at the end. Just a couple words from me and Andrea. We just kind of want to introduce ourselves to each of you because you don't know both of us. It's likely that some of you do, but not all of you do. In 2022, Andrea and I founded this little thing we call Dharma Laundry, with this mission to illuminate the divine in everyday living for seekers who are in pursuit of their Dharma. And part of that is learning what Dharma is and why it matters. So together we aim to point the way for everyday seekers to answer this call of a lifetime, this thing called Dharma, so that you can connect with the truth of who you are and what you're here to do. So as Andrea said, I am Kristin Fritz.
And I am Andrea Leda.
And we're going to be toggling back and forth to walk you through tonight's content. I like to begin with this overview of where we're going to lead you tonight. We have a short piece of time together, but we're going to do our best to cover, what is this thing called Dharma? And why does it matter? But more importantly, why does it matter to you personally? And then ultimately that lands us on this question of how do we discern our Dharma and how do we dial it up? And we really want to encourage you to stick around to the end of our time together today because we have a special offer for you and I know you're not going to want to miss it. So be sure and stick around. And then we want to begin very simply. I always like to start by defining my terms. So what is this thing called Dharma? And then we'll get into why it matters. The word Dharma is used in both Buddhist and Hindu contexts. And we like to use in our offerings, it's Hindu context because it's embedded in the philosophy of yoga. And we look at this word, this concept, this practice of Dharma through two specific texts. Of course, the original one being the Bhagavad Gita. And if you aren't familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, or what's commonly called the Gita in short, it is, very briefly put, an important but beloved ancient Hindu text that tells this allegory, this story of a warrior prince named Arjuna, who in a moment of desperation engages in a dialogue with his charioteer and guide Krishna. And Krishna goes on to teach him through this dialogue all about the nature of the universe, all about Dharma. And as a result of this dialogue, Arjuna ultimately overcomes like any doubt or fear that he may have had about the dilemma that he was facing, and thus realizes his own Dharma, his own purpose, and knows how to proceed from there, having had this realization. So we won't get into the story arc more than that here, but I would definitely say it's a worthwhile read. There's a lot of translations out there. We have Eknath Easwaran's translation pictured here because that's just my personal preference. And it turns out it's also the one that Stephen Cope uses in his book, the second book, The Great Work of Your Life, A Guide for the Journey to Your True Calling. And so this isn't a translation of the Gita, but Stephen is the director of extraordinary living at the Kripalu Institute. And he wrote this book to apply the teachings of the Gita to everyday life for those of us who are living in modern times. And he puts these teachings into practical terms. And he offers wonderful real life examples of people discovering their Dharma and living into their Dharma, facing their Dharma dilemmas. Some of these people are famous, people that you will know, and some are just friends, associates, clients of his. So he breaks down the core teachings of the Gita into 4 pillars, and that provides a framework to help us on our own path to Dharma. So this is the lens through which we like to look to Dharma and also teach about Dharma. And Stephen's book in particular really builds on this idea that your Dharma is your greatest desire that lives within you, which he defines for us, or is translated for us rather, in the Gita as our sacred duty. It is our path, it's our calling, it's our life's work, or you might even think of it somewhat of a life purpose. Your Dharma is that thing that you must do because it's embedded within you. It's part of you. And you come to learn through discerning your Dharma that it's highly personal for you. So it's important for us to note here that it's not to be confused with one's job, their career, their vocation, although that can be an aspect of how you express or live your Dharma.
All right, so why should you care about it? Why does it matter? What's the big hype? This idea of Dharma is still, I believe, relatively new to me. I say relatively new because I've only been studying it for a few years. And the moment you start unpacking this one word, it's just a rabbit hole of fascination and information. And I think once you pick it up, you can't ever put it down. You don't want to ever put it down. But if you find yourself asking questions like these on the slide, do you feel lost or uncertain or confused about your life's journey? And it may not mean that you're unhappy or unclear, but maybe you feel like there's something missing, something that's not quite coming to that alignment place. If you long to discover your life's purpose, maybe that's something that has been, I know for me, it was not only top of mind, it was top of heart for, well, my whole life still is. What is the thing I am ultimately here to fulfill? And do you wish to fully embrace your authentic self and live it full out? Given what I know about many of you in this class and those of you who spend time with Kristin, I think it's fair to assume all of us hope to embrace our authentic selves and live it full out. But there's a few other indicators we can look at that would point us back to Dharma. And these are just some of the indicators that if you're asking yourself whether you know it or not, you're asking about Dharma. You're asking about the arena of Dharma. But in addition, there's 3 questions I think all human beings ask themselves at some juncture on their journey on this planet. And those questions are, who am I? Why am I here? And how can I help or serve? So who am I? Why am I here? And how can I help or serve? And Dharma then becomes an invitation to know potentially the answers to these questions. And it's a way of living. Dharma is a way of living that returns you time and time again to a better sense of who you are and why you're here. And ultimately, it's what you're here for. Dharma is what you're here for. And here can mean on this planet at this time in history, at this particular time in history. We're going to speak about that in a moment. Or depending on your belief system, here might mean in this lifetime. So whatever here means for you, Dharma is what you're here for. Dharma is the thing, it's the idea, it's the calling that each of us has individually. And Dharma is your soul's deepest desire. It's a pretty weighted sentence. It's your deepest desire. Stephen Cope says that Dharma is the subtle interior blueprint of your soul. It's also a really heady sentence, but I love that sentence. It's the subtle interior blueprint of your soul. And that's the thing when we get into discerning Dharma, which we're just going to touch on a little bit here, because the actual discernment of Dharma is a far greater endeavor. But when we begin to look for or seek our Dharma, it's an interior seeking. It's looking within. And we can certainly find inspiration in our outer world, but it's that interior sense that we're coming back to time and time again. You might also call this returning to your true nature or your higher self. There's lots of different phrases we can use when we're speaking about Dharma. And ultimately, as a singular, unique, never replicated self, as you are and I am and each of us are, then it's important to note that just as we are all sacred in our own pursuit of our life's calling, our Dharma is also sacred, and it's also unique, and it's unique to you. So even though it can change and evolve over time, I promise you have a Dharma, and tucked inside that Dharma is a great amount of not just insight and clarity, but direction. So let's dive into the intersection. The intersection is where the gift meets the need. Your gift within yourself meets a need or the need in the world. And we call this the intersection. And what is at the intersection might be what we call your Dharma. Let's look at the gift in particular. So the gift is very close to the center of who you are and your own being. So think of the gift as something that's innate to who you are, like some part of you that's always been there. It could be a skill, a talent, a tendency, a longing, something that you have desired to be great at, something that you already feel maybe good at or great at. And even our innate gifts need our attention to grow and bloom fully. So while it's already in you, it's already a part of you, it's already central to your life in some way, big or small or lesser known or totally known, it still requires attention and evolution and growth if we want to utilize or benefit the world and ourselves in some way from this gift. And it can be experienced as an energetic knowing. So those things that we're passionate about, that we're fascinated by, that we're attracted to, that may be an inherent ability. So again, it could be a skill or a talent or something that is intrinsic or innate to who we are. It feels kind of like, I've always just done that, or that's just how I am, or I was born that way. I was born feeling that way or wanting to do that thing. Those are pointing to what we might call those innate gifts. So the things that you're drawn to time and time again, that for whatever reason, you may have no memory or historical event that got you excited about this gift. It just seems to be the thing that was always there. And it's probably something that you, let's say, take for granted, but maybe you don't put a lot of emphasis on because it's always been there. Sometimes it's easy to miss the things that are easy or innate to us. And in his book, Stephen Cope shares that your gift is not your Dharma itself, but rather a finger pointing to your Dharma. And this is back to Kristin's point that is Dharma is not your job or your vocation. And I think when we take texts like the Gita, we talk about Dharma that points to things like purpose and sacred duty, we may quickly look for vocation or task or job. And I think that it could be a misinterpretation. You might find your Dharma there, but more likely, I know for me, for example, as a coach, coaching is not my Dharma. Being a coach is not my Dharma, but I can use my role as a coach to help me stay aligned with my Dharma. My work as a coach points me back to my Dharma and vice versa. It's also worth noting that your gift is indestructible. You can't get rid of it. You can't destroy it. You certainly don't have to cultivate it. You don't have to put any attention on it. You don't have to get the benefit of it if you choose not to, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's not something that we can lose, or we can forsake it, but we can't lose it. But it's also vulnerable. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to all sorts of afflictions. So our connection to it, do we trust it? Do we have faith in it? These things can get muddled. Do we have doubt about it? Do we have uncertainty about our right to do it, our capacity to do it, our desire to do it? I think when you are in the realm of the gift that intersects the need, that is where your Dharma hangs out, it's inevitable that these afflictions will arise. And I think it's kind of a cool indicator. Well, maybe I'm really onto something that matters a whole lot to me, because with it is doubt or uncertainty, for example. And so Stephen Cope reminds us that your gift is vulnerable to all manners of disruption, and in particular, and especially doubt, which is why at Dharma School Retreat, we spend an entire day just on the affliction of doubt. And I'm sure we could spend many more than that, but it is worth sharing. And it's our personal duty to value and nurture our Dharma. It is your duty alone to nurture and value that which is your Dharma. No one else can do this for you. We certainly can have those who champion us and support us and mirror it back to us, but ultimately it is our duty to uphold. But first, you have to recognize it and discern it for yourself. So let's share quickly in the chat box, what are some of the gifts that come naturally to you or that others call on you for? And these may be really chunked up gifts, like I'm a great listener, or I'm a really good question asker, or maybe they're much more tangible. Like, I'm really great at throwing a dinner party. People call on me to make brownies. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. So what are some of the gifts that come naturally to you? And this is just a quick, playful exercise, but I hope you'll answer. Awesome. So seeing some already: taking care of, connecting with dogs. Awesome. Thanks, Paige. Problem solving, holding space, organizing, connecting the dots quickly, listening, creativity, challenging the status quo. That's awesome. Thanks, Shauna. Great asking questions that others won't ask. It's an incredible gift. Communicating, creativity, consulting. Yeah, cool. So please keep sharing in there. We have so many more gifts than we ever maybe are aware of. But when we start to work with our Dharma, we work with what we already know about ourselves. We always begin that discernment with the self, with what we already know to be true for us. So thank you all for sharing. Please keep adding those to the chat box.
So as Andrea said, this Dharma that we are talking about resides at the intersection of the gift and the need. And so let's take a little closer look at the need. Let's face it, there is overwhelming suffering in the world. Systems, institutions, like even simpler things that we once thought were stable and reliable are crumbling left and right. And oftentimes that's good for good reason, right? But regardless, it can leave us feeling that we're in a state of chaos or confusion, and we can call into question all kinds of things as a result, which makes us feel uncertain about what to do, how to proceed, and how to make an impact, how to make a difference. So I want to invite you to consider something a little unconventional. Consider perhaps that the current chaos and disruption in the world is a personal invitation to you. And to that point, I want to briefly share a metaphor known as Indra's net. And this comes from one of the most ancient Dharma tales in the Eastern tradition. And Indra's net is a vast and intricate web of gems that stretches out infinitely in all directions. And at each vertex or node of this net is held together by a glittering gem. And because there are infinite nodes in this infinite net, there are infinite gems. And each gem in the net represents a human soul. So each one of you on this call, each one of you listening to this call, each person that you see on the street is one of these gems. And you're intimately connected to all the other gems in the universe by way of this net. This metaphor of Indra's net illustrates the idea that all beings are interdependent and that every action by any individual gem has a ripple effect throughout the entire system. And this helps us to see the interconnectedness of all things in the universe. And it reminds us that living into our Dharma guides us deeper into relationship with our own truth and our own passion. And our Dharma helps us align our actions with that truth and with that passion, which is ultimately in service to all. So if you're living on this planet at this time, you are here for a reason. Every one of us has a role to play, and those roles are singularly unique. And guess what? You already make an impact every day. So it's how do we dial that up? How do we choose to show up in response to the need of any moment? Showing up centered in your truth and informed by your gift in any given moment. And let's highlight again that this is not about doing things right all the time or being a perfectionist. It's about the journey. This is an unfoldment process. So this is about the journey of realizing who you truly are and allowing yourself to show up fully as yourself, as often as you can remember and as best you can, because we're all works in progress. So this intersection of the gift and the need is one of the most important and also one of the most complex hallmarks of Dharma discernment. Dharma lives at this intersection that is, as Andrea said, specific to you alone, because it reflects your signature gifts and the needs that you most long to tend to, that which breaks your heart or moves you into action. It's as unique and singular for every gem as it is for each of us. Dharma is your signature response to the need of the times. And guess what? Even if I happened to describe or label my Dharma using the exact same words as you, we would still express our Dharmas wildly different from one another. And this brings me to the central theme of the Gita, which is, if you know who you are, you know how to act. You know how to respond. You know what to do. You know what the best next step is, no matter what's going on around you. And again, this is not a process of perfection. It's a journey. It's a path. And as you engage deeper with your Dharma, know that you can't get it wrong. There's no getting it wrong because it's guided by your own self-inquiry and reflection. And these core teachings and sometimes some guidance from others who are also on their Dharma path helps to light the way. So Stephen Cope says in his book that Dharma is born mysteriously out of the intersection between the gift and the need of the times. Dharma is a response to the urgent, though often hidden need of the moment. Each of us feels some aspect of the world's suffering acutely. It tears at our hearts. Others may not see it or don't care, but we feel it and we must pay attention. We must act. This little corner of the world is ours to transform. And once we begin to understand what Dharma is and why it truly matters, we ultimately land on this very juicy question, which is, okay, how do I discern my Dharma? And then how do I dial it up?
I want to go back real quick, and because I love this quote, and we have time here, and I want to invite the group. We've just thrown in 34 minutes, a lot of information at you all. So let's all take a breath. I invite you to, whether it's in your notes or in this quote, I want to hear, and you can put this in the chat box, what so far with this information that we're sharing is landing for you or igniting something for you or answering a question that you had. I just want to check in on ahas so far. And again, you can share those in the chat box. Yeah, thanks, Lucy. The need of the times. That's something that Kristin's always reminding me and pointing back to time and time again, that the need of today is very different than the need of a few hundred years ago, and will be very different than the need of a few hundred years from now. And so that intersection is not only unique to each of us, but the very fact that we're here on this planet at this time begins to flip, I think, the script from, oh, there's just so much need, to, okay, where specifically is the need that I get to tend to, that I get to support? I'm just reading through some of these. Thank you all for sharing. Moving us to action being key. Yes, Dharma is about right action, discerned action, truthful action, if we could give that truthful a capital T. Let's see what else. The intersection, that everyone is uniquely different, that it's a duty. Yes, thanks, Julie. I need to remember that my Dharma is not my job. Yeah. And there can be times where I know for me, I'll speak for myself, my job feels like my Dharma. It feels like a place I really got to feel and see and align with my Dharma. And sometimes it's nowhere to be found in that space. But it's specifically when we're looking at, in this question, how do you discern your Dharma, especially for those of us who maybe work in service already. We want to be mindful that we're not assuming it's in our vocation. It's in the tasks and the jobs that we do on a daily basis. Okay, so how do we discern this thing that we're saying is really, really amazing? We all have it. It's critical to your evolution as a soul here on the planet. It's critical to the service of our collective humanity. So how do we find what this is? And again, this is just a taste, because discerning is a much larger task to undertake. But we start by following joy, energy, and passion. Remember, in the earlier slides, we're pointing you back to the things that are innate to you, the things that you already know to be true about yourself. And joy and energy and passion are three of those things that we can look to. So Dharma is informed through joy, not the ways you think you should show up or how you think you should care, but those places that actually enact joy. And it doesn't mean that your Dharma is joyful. It doesn't mean that what is at your intersection is a happy thing. It might feel really overwhelming. It might feel like a need that is heartbreaking. As Kristin said, it will probably be heartbreaking. But does the tending to your Dharma at that intersection, for whatever reason, bring you joy? Does it light you up? Those are the types of indicators we're looking for. Your Dharma may not always feel convenient or easy, but when it is something that feels tied to your purpose for being on this planet, you will find a new kind of energy to sustain it. So passion and energy are required for the sustenance of your Dharma. And I would say, if you don't have that passion, if you don't have that feeling of I can't not do this, in other words, I have to do this, there is going to be a law of diminishing return around what you're tending to, because it will not be able to, you won't be able to sustain what it requires of you if at the back of yourself you don't feel joy or passion about it. So another word for sustaining our energy and our Dharma is commitment. It creates a commitment in you, a commitment that you don't put down, that you don't want to put down. Doesn't mean it's convenient, but still you feel it's worth engaging with at a pretty high level. And if it isn't fueled by joy and passion, then it isn't your Dharma. There are plenty of needs in the world that you may want to dedicate some time to, that you feel responsible for, that you want to be a good steward of, but it doesn't necessarily mean those things are your Dharma. So if it doesn't have that joy and passion and quickening and energy, and it doesn't call forth action from you on a fairly regular basis, it's probably not your Dharma. It's important to note, though, that it's not always going to be joyful. So sometimes our Dharma is going to bring us into challenging, deeply challenging experiences, but the passion is there. It's something you can't not do. So just because we maybe feel like, oh, this is hard, but it's still my Dharma and I still am gleaning something great for myself from this space, I know I'm going to keep showing up. Discerning your Dharma is a process. It's a journey, not a destination. We hear this all the time. Life is a journey, not a destination. Your Dharma is no different. And discerning your Dharma, and sometimes it's easier to know what your Dharma is not than to know what your Dharma is. Maybe you aren't sure what is fueled by joy or passion, but you might be able to name what isn't fueled by joy and passion. And maybe we can go at it from that angle. We start to take off the layers of the things we know it isn't. And by doing that, we will eventually find our way to our Dharma. And at times, your Dharma is figuring out what your Dharma is. This is one of my favorite pieces of Stephen Cope's book. He says your Dharma is to find out what your Dharma is. Sometimes if we don't know, then our Dharma is to find out. That gets to be our Dharma. So even when you don't know your Dharma, you have it. Even when you're evolving your Dharma, you already have it. So let's reflect a little bit here. Remember, I had said you're going to need your journal and a pen, something to write with. I want you to choose one prompt from this list. So the first prompt says, what lights you up right now? What's exciting and joyful to you? The second prompt says, what pursuits do you feel drawn to, fascinated by, or energized by? Or this third prompt, is there a greater vision calling to you? And I would say with that third prompt, do your best to park any of the, but I don't know how. So we are not concerned with how at this moment. Is there simply a greater vision calling to you? Can you commit some of that to paper? So pick one prompt. And this is an invitation for you to follow your energy. What we were just talking about, follow what feels exciting or energizing. We're going to spend 3 minutes and then we'll do a little chat box sharing. So pen to paper, and I'll put 3 minutes on the timer. About halfway, take another 90 seconds. All right, about 10 seconds. So finding that final thought or wrap up point. And we will share all of these prompts in our follow-up to you all. So if you didn't get to one and you're excited about it, it'll certainly be there as a resource for you later. So I want to open the floor. We both want to open the floor here, and you're welcome to use the chat box for this reflection. But I also invite you to unmute yourself, say hello. I would love to hear from a few of you. Which prompt did you write from, and what did you take away from that pretty quick exercise? Would anyone like to share? And again,
Hi,
yeah, hey
it's
CK.
CK. Hi again. I'm outside and looking really strange. But hi everyone. Good evening, afternoon, wherever you are. The thing that I decided to write on was what pursuits do you feel drawn to, fascinated by, etc. Um, and for me, there's I guess two things. One, um, as I am really on this journey of being a coach and facilitator, one of the things I wrote down for my gifts too was the just loving being able to unlock possibility for others, even when it looks impossible or improbable. And so, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is, possibility over probability, and really talking to my clients about that too. Um, and then the other thing is this like huge fascination for a while of the intersection between health and wealth, or wellness and wealth, and um, how that kind of impacts people's ability to be healthy, but also their inability maybe to see those possibilities because of whether that's systemic or personal blockers. So that's where I am right now.
Wow, you got a lot out of 3 minutes. I would be curious what happens if I give you like 20. Amazing. And CK,
Some of this was kind of there. Thank you.
Did you have your hand raised? Did you have a question?
I did, and it was about that last bullet of sometimes your dharma is finding your dharma, and it made me wonder, do you have different dharma at different points of your life because the times change? Like, does your dharma evolve? I think that wasn't super clear for me.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, Kristin, do you want to take a minute here and reflect on that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And we're going to have time at the end for more questions. But just to address that one in real time, CK, this is one of the Dharma truths that we're going to share with you in just a moment, that yes, our Dharma does evolve. And sometimes Dharmas sort of live out their purposefulness and they fade away. And then we can move into a new Dharma. In fact, Andrea and I did a training with Stephen Cope around this time last year, and he's an extraordinarily successful, person, having written multiple books and being the director of extraordinary living at Kripalu Institute. And he shared with us that he was done writing books and he no longer knew what his Dharma was. And so he was in this moment of reflection and contemplation around what his new Dharma would be. And so, he shared with us that his Dharma at that moment was finding out what his Dharma was. So yeah, you're very astute to pick up on that yes, and we can also have more than one Dharma at a time as well. So.
Oh, now you're blowing my mind. Okay. I will wait and listen for more.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much we could share, but yes, great question. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, CK. All right, I'd love to open the floor for one more person to share a reflection from their journaling if someone feels brave to share. All right.
Okay, Andrea.
Oh, thanks, Julie. Saved by the
Can't believe
bell.
it. I can't believe I'm doing this, but it goes along with the question that I chose, which was the last one, and that is there a greater vision for you? I would have avoided that like the plague, maybe, I don't know, last week. But I've been thinking about this. You know, yes, I am in the midst of building my coaching business and all of that, but it's not end game for me. It's just not. And I am recognizing that and being okay with the answer that it's not end game. It gives me a deeper commitment to it because I recognize that it's the vehicle for what comes next. It's what I'm supposed to be doing right now so that I can get to what next is. And knowing that next, and you and I've had this conversation, knowing that, you know, there are things that are really piquing my curiosity and I'm really diving into, and knowing that those things are probably ingredients for what's next, and that I don't need to know exactly what next is to know that I'm on my way to it.
Very trusting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Julie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if I can just add a comment in response to that, Julie, that's what I call like sort of this R&D phase that sometimes we need to step into to like we're saying, you know, it's this path, it's this process that's unfolding in front of us, and really knowing what to do next is just what is the next step. And sometimes it's going out and just like doing something that is experimental and just doing a little R&D, research and development, you know, oh, maybe it's this, and turning over a few stones. This is close, but not quite. Or, ooh, I'm getting warm here. And it does give us that data that we need to inform the next step. So see how innate this process can be? Like you're already intuitively discerning for yourself.
Thank you. Yes, R&D, I love it. Yes, yeah. I'm down for some of that.
Well, we're going to shift real quick into some of these Dharma truths that CK teed up for us in her question. As Andrea pointed out a moment ago, you know, sometimes it's easier to point to what our Dharma isn't as a part of the process of discernment. So let's just explore some of the truths about what Dharma is and is not. So no one has only one Dharma in their life, as we shared just a moment ago. Dharmas arise and they slowly use themselves up. So these things have a story arc, if you will, and they take us to the next Dharma. And one of the other things that, you know, Stephen Cope, I love how he labels this. He says, watch out for the romance of Dharma, because callings don't usually call for these dramatic life changes. Very often, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place. There we are. Very often we might think that we need to leave our job selling insurance to go to Paris and start painting, but usually that's not where our Dharma path is going to lead us. So we don't have to get fearful about like, oh my gosh, this is just going to completely turn my life upside down and I'm going to have to make all of these changes. It's just not usually like that. So we don't have to stress ourselves out over that. And most often what is actually happening is that we're already sort of in the neighborhood, very close to our Dharma, mucking around. And what we need is just better aim to hone in on what that is and identify it with greater certitude. And as we said earlier, one's job, your vocation or your career is not necessarily your Dharma. Your job or your career or your work in the world might be one aspect of expressing your Dharma. Your Dharma can inform how you show up in that role, and in fact, in all the roles that you play in your life. But it's not necessarily, we notice sometimes people get into a mindset of like marrying job, career with Dharma, and they can be entangled, but it is not necessarily one and the same. Your Dharma is what you feel called to right now at this particular time in your life. And that is highly changeable too. You know, it's associated with what's going on in the world, but it's also associated with what's going on right in front of you at that very moment. So Dharma can take this grander, more inclusive long-term arc, but it can also be like, how am I showing up in my Dharma right now with this person in front of me, or the situation that's unfolding in front of me in this moment? And Dharma is, or discerning your Dharma is a process. It's a process of contemplating and clarifying. And oftentimes we need a container to be able to get to that, to be able to be in self-inquiry and reflection, so that we can start to gain some deeper insights, but also so that we can start to name some of these aspects. And one of the things that we really talk a lot about is naming it and claiming it. So Stephen Cope writes, am I living fully right now? Am I bringing forth everything I can bring forth? Am I digging down into that ineffable treasure house that I know is there, that trove of genius? Am I living my life's calling? Am I willing to go to any lengths to offer my genius to the world?
I think we should probably include that quote in our follow-up. It's so good. It's so good. And I hope that these questions land for you as an opening and an opportunity. And sometimes I read this quote and I go, oh, nope, not today, Stephen, not today, Dharma. And sometimes I think, oh, there it is. Okay, I felt that, or I'm in that, or I have it, or I get it, or I understand it. And it's a constant dance, I would say. I can't believe it's already been an hour. We could talk, I could talk about this stuff all day, as I know Kristin can as well. As we geared up at the start of our class together, and as we have shared in some of the invitations for this class, this is today's class is a taster. It's a little primer, if you will, for a larger offering that Kristin and I have created together called Dharma School. So hopefully tonight's overview has provided some understanding of what Dharma is and why it matters on that bigger picture, like why it matters in general, and why it matters also to each of us individually as something that I do believe we have a duty to discern, and hopefully we get the benefit to live in accordance with at some time, if not for the whole of our life. And if this class felt like just the beginning for you and you're interested, or it really piqued your interest, or it's affirming something for you, and you want to discern your Dharma or live it fully or step more into it, or be, as Kristin said, in that container for self-inquiry and reflection and guidance and support, then we invite you to join us at Dharma School. It is May 25th through the 29th. It's coming up, not quite, but about a month from now. And for those who are local to Oregon, it is in Lake Oswego. For those who are not local to Oregon, that is about 15 to 20 minutes south of Portland. So we're just outside the city. And the retreat is open to women identifying individuals. We have resident and non-resident spots, and it is limited to 8 people. We try to keep our retreats intimate and small and deeply connected. There are some of you on the call tonight who attended last year, and I hope you can attest to the gift of those smaller retreat spaces. And we have just a few spots left. So for those who are interested, or you just want to know a little bit more about it, I invite you to stay on for a few minutes here. So we answer some essential questions. We explore some essential questions through our 5 days together at Dharma School to help you discern your Dharma, but to also help you name and have hopefully a more loving relationship to things that are inevitable, like doubt or questioning or uncertainty. So some questions that we explore: how do I know my Dharma? How do I know if I'm right? How do I know it's right? How do I know it's enough? I know that's a question I've been lovingly plagued with for a number of years. How do I know if I'm doing it enough or it is enough? And how do I deal with doubt and fear? Do I even recognize doubt and fear when it arises? How do I do that? So day one, we welcome you in, get our community ready for the next 5 days. We have an incredible team of chefs who come in and make us a beautiful welcome meal, and we slowly get you into the groove of our 5 days together. Day two is all about discernment. So together on day two, we delve into the sacred journey of discerning one's Dharma, that much needed work in the world that only you can do. Day three, we lovingly call Doubt Day. We explore how doubt is an outer sign pointing to an inner struggle. As if you attend, you'll learn from Kristin that doubt is a doorway. This is one of my favorite teachings of this entire retreat. And this day alone, not just for the sake of our Dharma, but for the sake of our life and the ways in which we investigate challenge and hardship, this is a really incredible reframe on turning toward light with the shadow of doubt. Day four, hopefully we can get us there to that Dharma amidst the modern day messaging that constantly demands we need something more, new, or different. You will get to discover why Dharma is the only thing the world requires of you. It's the thing your life is made of, and you're already doing it. You already are the essence of it. So this is a space to get it out of your mind, out of your heart, where you can work with it and see it and let it benefit you in some greater way. And then we end on our last day with a final morning meditation and a beautiful brunch as a way to end our time together.
So let's just look at a couple of past attendees' words about their experience last year. And I know we have a handful of them on the call tonight, which is wonderful to see because they understand that the Dharma is this unfolding process and that we have to continue the work and continue to be in relationship with it and continue to remind ourselves of our Dharma and why it matters and how we do that. I'll say some more words about that in just a moment, but Jennifer said this is a retreat for seekers, those interested in next level understanding of their true self. I now know what actions are aligned with my Dharma, my true self, and my desires. Sophia, who I know is on the call live tonight, said, I can honestly say I walked away with a clear vision of my Dharma. I had been unable to put words to it my whole life or create a clear understanding of it, and now I have that. Every detail of the retreat was so incredible. The location was like heaven on earth. And Missy said, I would tell anyone to go for it. It was truly one of the most memorable and transformative experiences I have ever had. And Missy is one of our attendees whose Dharma was to figure out what her Dharma is. So that's just a bit of what people had to say. And so we really appreciate everybody coming onto this call and leaning into this concept of Dharma. It's not a mainstream word. It's not something that most people totally understand. But when people do learn what it means, they are all in. They are like, yes, that is what I'm searching for. So if that is you, we wanted to, as a thank you, offer for being on the call tonight and leaning in. Say that we are throwing in, if you register for your retreat spot now through the end of tomorrow, our gift to you is a 90-minute Dharma coaching session with both Andrea and myself after the Dharma School retreat. And this is really a wonderful opportunity to continue the work that you do at the Dharma School retreat. It's a great follow-on. And just to clarify, this offer expires at midnight tomorrow. So you have all the way till midnight tomorrow to take advantage of that offer. Obviously, if spots are available, it's still going to be available, but this particular add-on bonus of the 90-minute Dharma coaching session is good through tomorrow. Let's throw the registration link up there. Yeah, thank you. And we also just want to note that the content for this year's Dharma School is largely the same as last year. We wanted to make it available to more people, but after this year's Dharma School retreat, the content is going to be updated annually. So new seekers of Dharma and returning seekers of Dharma can come and return to this immersive container as like an annual pilgrimage to continue their work. I know I would go with my spiritual teacher and travel with him on an annual basis to India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, so that I could step into that deeper immersive container and be in deeper relationship with myself around the things that I was working on. And there's just nothing like having that that return to dip your toe back in the water and come back and roll up your sleeves and like be back into relationship with it in a deeper way. So to reiterate, last year that we'll be offering the original Dharma School retreat content, and next year will be all new content for new and returning attendees each year. And that brings us to the end of our offering, but we really do want to open up the floor. We've got a little piece of time for questions. And if you have any questions, this is a great opportunity for you to either throw them into the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and let yourself be known and share what's on your mind.
And any questions about Dharma School as well, while you have us here live, you're more than welcome to ask those, as well as about the content. And something that isn't explicitly in the slides, but we pointed to all evening, in Dharma School, we work with The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. That is it's the backdrop to the retreat. So we pulled, you heard a lot of quotes, and as pointing to his content tonight, that is one of the teachers that we bring in his teachings to this retreat as well. All right, any questions? What questions you all have?
I don't have questions, but I will just join in everyone else that was there last year with how wonderful it was. Transformational, and that add-on coaching session, perfect. If you're on the fence, that should tip you over at the fence to sign up. Because I did
her to say that. Thank you, Lucy.
Well, I did your follow-up classes last year. We had a couple follow-ups, and then you did the message class, and it was those follow-ups that really got me all the way there.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy, for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Any other questions? Comments, ahas, takeaways, all of the above. All right, well, we're going to leave the floor open for questions. You're welcome to also use the chat box or raise your hand if you want. I would love for you all to share in the chat box, what are you taking out of tonight? It could be a word, a feeling, a question, a curiosity. I'd love to hear your takeaways. And thank you, Shauna. She just said this is truly brave work. I think so too. Thanks for saying that.
I'll share one of mine.
Yes, thanks, Kristin.
I'm just really excited that we had 40 plus people sign up for Tell Me About Dharma. You know, I think I think that there's more and more people who are awakening to something inside them that wants to come forth. And sometimes that can be really scary. And sometimes it can just be like, I don't know how to do that. So to me, it's a testament that more and more people are wanting more, not just for the world, but through themselves. And they know that it's locked within there, tucked within there, as you like to say, Andrea.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. I love that you said that. Yeah, I was really excited. The more people registered, it's like, oh my God, all these people want to know about this or talk about it or ask about it. And so it gets really exciting when we get so many people on a call or even just know they're going to listen to a class. When I found Dharma, when I found The Great Work of Your Life, and I'll show you all my tabbed to death book. I'm very proud of how many tabs are on my book and how many passages are highlighted. This book, what answered, it didn't give me my Dharma, but it answered every question I had about what the heck am I doing here? I really, really, really want to know because I really want to do it and give my life to it. And so I know for myself, working with Dharma has just been really personally fulfilling. So when I get to be in community with other people around it, it's just that much more exciting.
Can I share something, Andrea?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm just really present to is like I really kind of struggled with like, what is it? And just being in a container and really spending a couple of days digging into it helped me face what it is. And even though I find it really challenging to say that that's what it is, like my Dharma is around self-love, you know, I've had some very significant opportunities to explore that in especially the last 6 months, that I think maybe not knowing it, like I feel emotional. It's just really, it's important that I know that it's part of my purpose on being on the planet and to be able to support through my work, especially women discovering their own love for themselves. Like I just imagine a world where like if every woman that was leading knew her, like loved herself, what a different world we would live in, the ripple effect of that. And I wouldn't have told you in a million years that self-love was my Dharma. No freaking way. So I just really encourage, like, however that you come across doing this work, it's actually really important work. And it ties beautifully in with other purpose work that I've done. And it's just created, I think, some opening for myself to go towards joy in my own work as an act of self-love. Like it's literally like me doing the work that I love the most is literally me doing my Dharma and being my Dharma. So it's really important, and it feels really important. Like you can see, like it makes you really tender to be connected into that. And I feel a lot of gratitude to both of you for teaching this work.
Thank you. I know I remember having that breakthrough moment with you on the terrace.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is brave work and it's not always easy, but it is that joy and that passion that is just oozing out of you. That is what keeps us going. And it keeps us on the path because we know we can't not do it.
Yeah.
We know it's our truth. And it's liberating. Yeah. Yeah, and just similar to what you just said, oh, you were the one who put this in the chat. Imagine a world where we all knew and lived our Dharma. Indra's net, right? Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts or questions before we sign off for this evening? I know for some of you, it is very late where you are. Thank you all for being here, spending your Monday night with us.
Well, here are some of the takeaways, Andrea, from the chat box. A renewed sense of certainty, possibility of personal enlightenment, the universality of this idea. It resonates me as a strengths coach, the innate qualities of people being discovered and then people stepping into it. Yes. The idea of finding some of your truth. I'm taking away a nice refresher on Dharma. This is Sophia, one of our past attendees, taking a refresher on Dharma and feeling inspired to be in the presence of other souls on the journey to live it. Julie says, as someone who has to have answers and the next step mapped out, recognizing that I don't actually need either of those things to move forward with what I innately know. So powerful. And Amy saying, liberating. I love that. I'm so excited to think of the possibilities. And Amy is signed up to attend. So excited for you to do that work, sister.
Oh my gosh. I just got really excited for all of this. We haven't been, it's been a year since we did Dharma school. So thank you all for giving us a reason to pop back in earlier than May and start to engage with this content. It really is so juicy. All right, you all. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Kristin, for, as always, being my dear collaborator and best friend, my bestie on so many levels, my soul sister and my teacher and my spiritual mentor. Last question here from Jennifer. Do you plan to offer it again in the future? I think you're referring to Dharma School Retreat. Yes, it is an annual offering. So it'll be back next May 2024. And for as long as Kristin will oblige me.
I got you. I got you.
Yes. So we will follow up tomorrow. We'll send you the recording for those who are with us and who couldn't attend live. That'll be available to you, as well as some of those prompts. We'll throw in a couple of those quotes, the books we recommended, and of course that offer until tomorrow. If you want to register for us for Dharma School within the next day, we will extend a 90-minute call with both of us. And as she said, beyond that, yes, if spots are still available, please continue to consider and register, but that extended coaching will be available through tomorrow. All right, y'all.
All the love in the chat box. We want to just send our gratitude out to all of you for being here and letting us, receiving the work that we want to put out into the world. It really means a lot that it's resonating. So happy to be in communion with you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Same. All right. Good night to wherever you are.
you.
Bye. Thank you all. Good night.